Hello and welcome to Watch Releases Recap for the week of August 30th until September the 6th. Let's begin with Tag Heuer and their new Carrera Chronograph Extreme Sport collection. A couple of months ago, Tag Heuer has released a limited edition watch in collaboration with Porsche called Carrera Chronograph Porsche 963. It was released in a limited quantity of 963 copies, and it sold out pretty much from every website that it was available on. Well, now, a couple of months later, there is a very similar looking watch in a few different color combinations, as well as a couple of different complications. First of all, there are 4 new chronograph versions, just different colors of essentially the same skeletonized watch. It comes in a 44mm case diameter, made out of grade 5 titanium. They're about 49.5mm lug-to-lug distance, and these ones are a bit on the thicker side, but not too bad. 15.1mm in case height in a sapphire sandwich. These watches are powered by the caliber TH20 chronograph movement. It beats at 4 Hz, it has 33 joules and 80 hours of power reserve, and of course the claim to fame for this watch is that skeletonized dial. It is certainly a look, although I don't think it works for this watch specifically. I mean, tastes are subjective, but I think for some reason on this case shape with that bezel, it kind of cheapens the look of the watch. And these watches are not cheap, especially the other version. The other version comes in 2 different colors, and it features a tourbillon as well as the chronograph complication, not just a chronograph. The date window at the 6 o'clock position is now replaced with the tourbillon, which kind of looks cool. I think it works better with the skeletonized design over the simple chrono, but still it kind of looks, I don't know why, a little bit off, a little bit cheap. Also, there are so many other skeletonized chronos on the market right now, so I don't know why Tag is creating more of these watches. I guess they were popular with the Porsche edition, so now they're hoping that this edition will also be quite popular. As far as the pricing and availability, for the chrono, they're not limited edition, and they're priced at 8,000 Swiss francs for the titanium version. The tourbillon complication one is about 25,500 Swiss francs, and again, it's not a limited edition. Speaking of skeletonized watches, let's talk about the new Alpina Extreme Skeleton Automatic. I think it's kind of funny that both Tag Heuer and Alpina released skeletonized watches, and both of them have Extreme in their name. Although I'm not sure why either one of these watches comes with the Extreme in its name. Especially the Tag Heuer, it only comes with 100 meters of water resistance. This Alpina at least comes with 200 meters of water resistance, and it is essentially a slightly modified version of their existing Alpina Extreme line of watches. What I really like about this watch is the fact that they actually shrunk the case, which is kind of unusual. Usually when the companies skeletonize the watch, they also kind of make the watch larger, but this Extreme watch is actually a bit smaller, so it comes in a 39mm case diameter. It's about 40.5mm lug-to-lug distance, since these watches are kind of square, so that should wear pretty well on your wrist. And my favorite part is the case height, only 11.5mm. This watch, just like the Tag Heuer, comes with the sapphire sandwich, but unlike Tag Heuer, this one is powered by a more basic movement. It's a caliber AL510, which is essentially a modified Sellita SW201 automatic movement that has 26 joules. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it has 38 hours of power reserve. I think that is sort of the weakest part of this watch. The movement itself is great, don't get me wrong, but I don't know how many people want to see a skeletonized Sellita movement, especially if you know watches. And chances are, if you're buying an Alpina, you probably know a thing or two about watches. It's not the most beautiful movement to look at. It's a workhorse, but I don't know if you want the skeleton version of it. Looks-wise, I actually quite like these watches. I think they look pretty attractive. I'm a big fan of these sort of integrated bracelet designs, and this one undoubtedly has some inspiration from the AP Royal Oaks. It also has a bit of Hublot in there. Overall, pretty attractive. There are 2 different versions, one with blue accents, one is sort of monochrome, and the blue accents one comes on a rubber strap. That one is a bit cheaper. It costs 2,395 euro. The one on the stainless steel bracelet costs 2,695 euro. I think overall a pretty fair price for a watch like this, and of course on the gray market in a few months these watches will be available at a pretty heavy discount. The new Breitling Chronomat NFL Collection. I find this new Breitling release fascinating. They release essentially 32 different limited edition watches for the 32 different NFL teams. So if you're a fan of one of these teams, you can buy a watch to sort of celebrate that partnership. I guess having a baseball cap is not enough or a jersey, so you want to have something a little bit more memorable. And I actually think some of these watches will be very popular, especially with some of these bigger NFL teams that have a very large base of fans. If you know NFL fans, you know that there are some very passionate people, and I think Breitling is the company that kind of makes sense to partner up with NFL. These watches tend to be larger, they tend to stand out, and I think having these bright colors and different team logos on a dial kind of works together. But essentially, other than the new dial colors and the logos on the dials, these watches are the same as the standard Chronomats. They come in a 42mm case diameter made out of stainless steel. It's about 50mm lug-to-lug distance, and these watches are a bit thicker, 15.1mm in case height, but I think it's not too bad, especially for this sort of tough over-the-top chronograph watch that is actually automatic. Speaking of, it's powered by the caliber B01 automatic chronograph movement. It's actually the same movement that powers the Tudor Black Bay chrono, which is kind of interesting. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It has 47 joules and approximately 72 hours of power reserve. Each version of the Swatch will be limited to 140 copies, so there's quite a few different watches available, and they are available right now for the price of $8,800 on the rubber strap or $9,200 on the stainless steel bracelet. You do have to be a pretty big fan of your football team in order to pull out like $9,000 for one of these watches and have the team's logo on the dial. I'll be very interested to see how well these watches sell. The new Seiko Marinemaster models SLA077 and SLA079. Last year, Seiko reintroduced their Marinemaster line of watches, and I personally wasn't a huge fan of that watch because I feel like they made it look too generic. The whole point of Marinemaster, at least the one from back in the day, was this over-the-top tough diver watch that was made out of one piece of stainless steel, the monoblock case. Well, this time I think they actually listened to a bit of a feedback from the watch community, and they have actually made some welcome changes, like the fact that the case now is slightly larger and the water resistance has been bumped up to 300 meters instead of 200 meters on the last year's release. The new cases are 42.5 millimeters in diameter as opposed to 39.5 millimeters for last year's release. The lug-to-lug distance though is still very reasonable, under 50 millimeters, 49.5 to be exact. They're also quite thin watches at around 13.4 millimeters. So they're not as giant as the old version. The old version I believe was 44 millimeters, but 42.5 is kind of closer to this big over-the-top size that I personally like, because Seiko kind of made all their diver watches look very similar, so having one watch like this that kind of stands out is a good idea. Now it's available with two different color combinations. One is a white dial, one is a black dial. Out of the two, I prefer the black on black. I think that looks pretty good. I also like how the date window in this color combination doesn't stand out too much. It still does because it's at this awkward 4:30 o'clock position, but at least it's not as bad as on the white dial. On the white dial, it really stands out. Why not put the date at the 3 o'clock position or the 6 o'clock position? I think that would look a lot better. The dials on these watches have also been changed since the previous release. So last year's release had these sort of horizontal lines. It kind of looked like a ship deck. These new ones just feature a matte dial finish, which I actually prefer. I think it looks better with this design. They're still powered by the same caliber Seiko 8L35 automatic in-house movement that has 26 joules. It's a Hi-Beat movement beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and these movements have about 50 hours of power reserve. As far as the pricing and availability goes, these ones are not a limited edition, so they're part of the standard catalog, and they're priced at 3,000 euro, which I think is a little bit less than last year's release. I think that one was 3,300 euro. So again, kind of a surprising strategy from Seiko, actually taking the price down instead of increasing it year over year. We also have a few different Grand Seiko models to get through. First, let's talk about the new Hi-Beat 45 GS case. The references SLGW004 and SLGW005. If you're a fan of Grand Seiko watches, you probably recognize these dials, these watches right off the bat. It's one of the sort of iconic looks for Grand Seiko. very classic from 1960s, and these watches are highly collectible. Well, now in 2024, Seiko is kind of re-releasing these models, and they're very faithful recreations to the original. The only difference is that now they feature a new movement and slightly larger cases. So first of all, the case diameters are 38.5 millimeters as opposed to 36 millimeters, which is a welcome change. I think modern Grand Seiko customers prefer slightly larger watches. It's not over the top, still under 39 millimeters, but I think it works better in modern context. These watches are also quite thin. They're only about 10.5 millimeters in case height, and they feature a sapphire sandwich. Now these ones are powered by the new Seiko Caliber 9S4A. It's a manual wind movement that has incredible accuracy. It also has 47 joules and 80 hours of power reserve. These movements are masterpieces to look at and of course to interact with. Butter smooth, just incredible caliber. Now of course all of that sort of specialness of the Swatch as well as the new caliber comes at a pretty hefty price. So these watches are limited editions. The stainless steel version is limited to 1200 pieces. The yellow gold version is limited to 200 pieces. The stainless steel version costs 10,500 euro and the gold version costs 32,000 euro. The gripe that I have about this watch is the fact that the price is so high, because you can buy these watches, not these watches, but the originals, the watches that these watches are kind of recreating, for 1/10 of the price. At the Japanese markets, they're available on eBay through some third-party websites. You can buy these watches for around 1,000 euro, maybe 1,200 euro in a really good condition. Not gold versions, of course, but stainless steel versions. So you can essentially get the original at 1/10 of the price. So a cool release, and I think the price, yeah, it's high, but that's what it should be, I guess, because they can't really price these Grand Seikos at like 5 grand. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one. Another Grand Seiko release, the Heritage Hi-Beat Icefall, reference SBGH347. Right off the bat, I think this watch is gorgeous. At this point, it's kind of a cliche to praise Grand Seiko for their dial designs and the execution of the finishes, but it has to be said that this is a very good looking watch. Although it does look similar to other releases, just with a slightly different color combination. The birch comes to mind in terms of that dial texture. This watch comes in a 37mm case diameter, which is sort of rare. Grand Seiko only does their special watches in this diameter. It also has a very conservative lug-to-lug distance, only 44.5mm, but the case height is on the thicker side, 13.5mm. Now it doesn't sound too bad, but on a 37mm diameter and only 44mm lug-to-lug distance, that case height will really stand out. This will look like a chunky boy on your wrist, even though it's not. It's just due to the case dimensions. The case is also made out of stainless steel and it features that Zaratsu polish. These ones are powered by the new caliber 9S85 automatic in-house movement that beats at 36,000 vibrations per hour. It has 55 hours of power reserve and 37 joules. Now these ones are not a limited edition. They will be available at Grand Seiko boutiques and retailers starting in October, and they're priced at 6,900 euro. And there's actually another Grand Seiko release. This one is the reference SLGA025, also known as the Evolution 9 Atera Valley. This new Grand Seiko reference comes in that iconic 44GS case. That's the case that is with the Four Seasons collection. These cases are also made out of titanium as opposed to stainless steel, but they still feature quite a high level of polish. In terms of the dimensions, it's about 40mm in diameter, 48mm lug-to-lug distance, and these ones are quite thin, 11.8mm in case height. The movement powering this watch is the spring drive caliber 9RA2, which is a very cool movement because it has the power indicator at the back, so you can see the power indicator through the case back as opposed to having it on the dial itself. I know a lot of watch enthusiasts do appreciate the detail. This movement also has 38 joules, and there's no official beat rate as these have completely smooth seconds hand. Now the accuracy of these watches is incredible. It's plus or minus half a second per day, or about 10 seconds per month deviation, which is incredible. And of course, all that technology will cost you on top of having this beautiful dial, which I do really like. It's not my favorite, probably the pink, the pink Four Seasons is still my favorite, but this one here does look really attractive. And these watches, as I mentioned, are not cheap because of all that technology and because of the dial and because it's a Grand Seiko and because it's titanium. So you have to spend about 11,000 euro to purchase one of these watches, and it is not a limited edition. And lastly, let's talk about the MoonSwatch, our favorite topic, and the fact that now they're available online. MoonSwatch was released over 2 years ago, and it is still very popular. I see a lot of sort of regular people wearing these watches, which is great. I think it stole quite a bit of market share from smartwatches, which I personally appreciate. And now, finally, it will be available online. But don't celebrate too early because there are some conditions, if you will. Number one, it's only available in United States and China. And number two, only several editions are available online. So not the whole collection, only 4 out of all of them. Mission to Earth, Mission to Moon, Mission to Sun, and Mission to Mars are the editions that are available online. Now, you don't have to line up anymore. You don't have to go to the stores anymore. You can just buy them online from the Swatch website. This move to have the watches available online also shows that the hype on these watches has kind of died down. So now they're trying to access new customers by making them available online because, of course, it's a lot more convenient buying one of these watches online as opposed to going to the store, seeing if they're in stock, the whole 9 yards. So I think this is overall pretty good news if you're into these watches and if you want to buy one of them. Now it's a bit easier. And that's it for this week's releases. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this in the future. And on a side note, I will not be releasing videos for the next 2 weeks, possibly 3, but I think 2, because I'm going on vacation. So don't be alarmed. I'm okay. Bond is okay. We're just on vacation. So I hope you have great and productive next 3 weeks, and I'll see you when I return. By the way, there probably will be some videos available on the YouTube channel, not the weekly updates, but a couple of watch reviews. So stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye.